career counseling, it is extremely important to understand why you should take your career choice seriously. In this video, we will help you understand the importance of making the right career choice for yourself. So, why is your career choice so important? It is important because it determines a lot of things in your life, including number 1, quality of life. Your career choice plays a huge role in deciding where you live, how flexible your life is, and the kinds of things you are able to do in your free time. Number 2, identity. Ask any elder person about their career and they will tell you about it as a part of their identity. They'll say something like, I am a journalist, instead of, I report news. Notice how everybody asks you, what do you want to be when you grow up? And not, what do you want to do when you grow up? This shows that your career choice shapes your identity. Number 3, impact. Every human life touches thousands of other lives in so many different ways. If you select any 60-year-old person who is about to retire, take a time machine, find him as an infant, throw that infant into trash, and then come back to the present day, you'll find that a countless number of things around you have changed. So whatever career you choose, the world will be affected by it. Anything that determines your quality of life, your identity, and the impact that you make should be taken very seriously. And that includes your career choice also. So we hope that this short video could help you understand the importance of making the right career choice. Having done that, we will now move forward to start our career counseling course. We are pretty excited and we hope you are too. So let's begin. See you.
Hello everyone, good evening. Welcome to day 67 of ProBano's live podcast. सबको स्वागत है. Firstly, the audience members, welcome. And Mr. Sen, Aditya and Pragya running the stream. And of course, आज के जो guest है, वो है Bharg Kale, who is a singer, a songwriter, music producer and a sound engineer. So firstly, Bharg, thank you for coming. Welcome to our podcast.
Yeah, thank you for the invite. Honestly, I didn't expect it because I don't think like a lot of people want to ask musicians a lot of questions about career as such. So, I mean that is really different in terms of somebody approaching a musician to give an insight about.
Yeah, definitely, and we'll explore much more about the careers in the music industry. उससे पहले मैं भार्ग को इंट्रोड्यूस कर देता हूँ. So Bharg, as I said, is a singer, songwriter, music producer, sound engineer from Delhi. He did his schooling from the Air Force School, New Delhi, and graduated from Hindu College, University of Delhi, majoring in philosophy. He was in the Hindu College Western Music Society and a part of the music circuit of Delhi University. He is conducting choirs and playing for their band. Influenced by varied genres and having a diverse sense of music, he's trying to bridge the gap between genres. Bharg has performed at many venues and events in Delhi, including at the Piano Man Jazz Club and and a hip hop event called Spit Dope, which invites some of the topmost people in the Indian hip hop scene. He is also working with the likes of Sez On The Beat, the composer of the song Mere Gully Mein from Gully Boy, as well as a couple of songs with Bacha and others. Apart from music, he enjoys playing and watching football and teaches school students how to do public speaking and debating. So, सबसे पहले, you're a musician, of course. Then you've graduated in philosophy. Now, the connection, you don't see a natural connection there. But then you watch football and you're also teaching kids how to do public speaking and debating. So there's like a lot of things that on first sight तो कुछ matching होता नहीं है. So Firstly, Bharg, if you can introduce yourself in your own words, apart from what I said, and address the audience over here.
I think like Bharg Kale personally is a very confused chap, conflicted at a lot of stages in his life, and so I think that's a personality trait that he is. But I also think that I am very, uh, you know, not very stable in terms of a lot of things that come, and I think that's where the conflicted nature comes into play. But yeah, I mean, philosophy was a great learning experience, and teaching was as well a great learning experience, and all of those things helped me shape and decide, like, what I should do and what I should not do, honestly. And today, like, being a musician has been like a pretty great option, and is slowly turning out to be a better option than I thought it would be. And so yeah, I think like you've pretty much explained everything pretty well. So I don't think I have a lot of like more things to say about my own self in terms of anything. Yeah.
हाँ, तो फर्स्ट चीज मैं तो क्लियर करना चाहता हूँ. आई थिंक इट probably is on everybody's mind, and we were talking about this before we started the stream. Is can you explain the posters in your room? Guys, I think थोड़ा सा network problem दे रहा है.
Just basically, these
हाँ.
are posters that I got from our event in college. Me and did an event called with our team, of course. We did an event called Artie. Hello.
Bharg, I think there's some network problem. Could you just check if
audible?
हाँ, we can hear you, but बहुत कट के आवाज आ रही है.
अभी ठीक है?
Yeah, it's better now.
All right. So basically, those posters were from an event that me and Pragya, and of course with our entire team, did an event called Arpeggio, and our theme was retro. So we decided to get a lot of posters, and we decided to make a wall of posters. And we did an entire wall that was just filled of beautiful posters of old bands, old singers, and some of the classics that we all love, and some people of course adore and are inspired from. So, well, we let all the juniors take the posters from their first choice, and whatever was left from our favorite foods we collected and we brought home. So I decided to just stick them, because it looks nice when you bring artists inside studios and they see like a lot of posters and stuff, kind of gives them a different vibe, as they call it. Like, we need some vibe to like make music, so you try to set up different stuff. But there, personally, I enjoy myself. I enjoy all of these posters myself. So those are like AC/DC, Neil Young, Led Zeppelin, like Pearl Jam, The Doors, Beatles, basically all the classics that you name, they're there. So yeah.
Right, जो मैंने पहले बताया था, from graduating in philosophy
Absolutely.
to becoming a musician.
Yeah.
So how does that happen, and how did you figure out that you were into music, or how did you figure out you were into philosophy? Either way.
Oh, how did I figure I was into music? Wasn't that tough than like figuring out that I really wanted to do philosophy. I think it was back in class 12 that I had no idea that philosophy is a course. Honestly, I was in 12th. It was right in the middle of 12th, when I was just at every curious child who was worried about like his own 12th or like 11th marks, whether the fact that he or she studies about it or not is a different thing, but they're definitely worried about it. So we were all I was going through all my courses and checking ki, acha, Delhi University, what has Delhi University? And my parents are pretty funny that way. They said, you will not go to any other college except like colleges in Delhi University. That's a given. So just prepare for that. So I was like, okay. So I just went to the DU website and started searching through courses. I found philosophy, and I just went to my dad and I said, Papa, do you know there's a course called philosophy? And my dad's a graduate from Ramjas. So he said, ki, haan, pata hai. So I said, okay. He said, but it's a newer course. So, I mean, he kept some tabs. I don't know why or how, but yeah, funnily enough. So that's how I got to know about it. of course, then, but I was already into like a lot of debates and all of that stuff. And honestly, it kind of made sense when I understood like why, like because I had read books on philosophers, but I never thought like they teach it as like a proper subject, because I mostly read about them through for debating materials and like fundamental principles and all of those things. So then I went ahead with philosophy. And I mean, I really enjoy academics as like a part of everything and as a part of my life. But then I finally like went into like Delhi University. I went to Hindu, and then I found out I studied philosophy pretty like aggressively. And after a point in time, I realized, I mean, as much as I love academics, and I was as much as like I love all of these things and learning about like basics and fundamentals to like everything that we are today and are functioning on. I thought it would be better if I do music, because that's something that I had to give a try, because I wouldn't have been happy if I didn't do that. And and just like gave up without like trying all of those things. So that's actually how music came into place for me, as well as philosophy.
Great, fantastic. Or without any further ado, and to make up for the n number of episodes that I gave Aditya the worst deals of possible in humanity. So for now, I'll hand it over to him right away.
Thank you so much, Samant. I think I get a fair deal this time, getting airtime immediately after 15 minutes of the conversation. Great. So, hi Bharg, it's great to meet you. Thank you so much for agreeing to come on the podcast.
I had to.
So, hearing about your journey, I would be really interested in knowing when you discovered that, okay, I want to pursue music full time. And obviously, when you were a child, you were thinking of it somewhere in the back of your mind. But when you actually were in college, probably that somewhere the moment would have come. So, what was the
Yeah.
moment like? And after that, what did you do to actually, shift to this field? Because you had no formal qualification at that time in this field. So, did you complete any formal qualification? Did you study some courses, or did you just learn it on the go alongside?
No. Yeah. So I'll just start from the starting. So I entered college, of course. Me and Pragya, we were from the same year, so we joined Aria, which is our Western Music Society. And in first year, of course, she was a singer. I was an instrumentalist. I came in as a beatboxer, come instrumentalist. Um, I think in none of them had an idea that I do like compositions and all of those kind of stuff, like music production and sound engineering. It was something that I did mostly for personal, like my happiness and enjoyment. So, but there was another guy, my president called Artie Berman, in third year, who was into sound engineering, and he had a band, and he still has a band called DN, and they're doing pretty well now. So he introduced, he was doing it, and he wanted to honestly just do this. He wasn't convinced that he wants to study in study further or do anything. So basically, and I of course saw a lot of singer of ours, but my she's an opera singer in the United Kingdoms right now. She's doing Broadway singing. So people into music and who are doing pretty well for us, I realized that, oh, I give it something that can happen. I mean, this is something that happened, but you know, I first saw somebody from my own, with my own eyes, doing music. Because you're famous people and their story, but see people in front of you uh, pursue and actually go ahead and pretty much like do very well and succeed in whatever they're doing. So that was great. But apart from that, it was not until literally right in during my exams and after my exams, I put my foot down and I said, "This is exactly what I want. This is something I have to have." I think it was been very happy, like further, because I said I don't want to study for right now. I just would like didn't I just and I said said, what's the next best thing that I really know how to do? And I said, this is what I know how to do. I think I can do something
Probably, Bharg, there is
to
some internet issue at your
that.
end. The
And
voice is breaking a lot. So if you
honestly,
can check that. Can you hear me?
oh, all right. Yeah, I'll just
Yeah,
wait. I'll just yeah.
yeah.
I can hear you. I'll just
If you can probably connect to
switch
some
my
other internet, some other source of internet, maybe like a mobile hotspot, that would do. Um, so I think till now what we have heard, and we'll continue this conversation. So today is a deep dive into the careers in music, and we have heard a bit about music. So in this podcast, we have addressed being a musician, like a instrument player, and we have heard about being a singer. We have heard about being a
yeah.
band. But today,
Hello.
yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, basically, should I? Yeah,
Hmm.
until my late third year, where and after my exams, and when people are giving like entrances and all of those stuff, is when, because everybody was rushing, and I didn't really plan what to do after college. I had no idea. I just had a plan that I had to go to college, and after that I wanted to study philosophy, and I never planned anything after that. So the moment everybody was coming to a dead end, there was just a rush of thought, like everybody was rushing. So even I rushed into thinking, okay, now what am I supposed to do? Because almost everyone had some plans. Like even Pragya was studying for something further. Everybody was doing something or the other, and I was just there looking at all of these people, trying to understand, okay, this is what is happening. I gave my TISCA exam very casually. I just gave it. I woke up one day, filled up the form. I thought I'll study for it. I just didn't. And I just after that, I actually just, when you are left with nothing in your mind and you're just trying to decide, all right, what to do. I think that's like something that speaks to you as well, like your inner consciousness that tells you that, you know why don't you give this a try? And this was a try. Honestly, this is still a try. I mean, I'm not that successful, but this is still a try. It is still going on. It's still a journey, but it's something that I was with my parents, and I said, I have to do this. I have to give this a try. We can't just let it go. It's something that I'm sure I can do. So it was in the midst of all that.
That's great. So after college, basically, after your third year, you decided that I want to be a singer, songwriter, music composer, and music producer. So a
Yeah,
lot
it
of
was
things to cover.
it was an interest. Singer actually came because of all of these guys. I mean, Pragya and all used to sing, and I used to just watch them, and I thought I should give this a try. And so my primary things are songwriting, music production, and sound engineering. That's something that I learned. And yeah, about the second question about formal education and all, it is, I would advise people to take formal education if they can. But honestly, music production and sound engineering in India, and considering like the fact that it is a privilege to do sound engineering and music production as a course, as a formal course in India, honestly. Even abroad, even to go ahead and do it in abroad, these are expensive courses. So um, you can't, I mean, I didn't really know where to put my parents' money in a school where they could actually teach me, because it's still very new in this country. So I had no idea. None of these experts teach you anything. You have some of the best out there in this country, some composing and engineering some of the greatest music you will hear, but they don't go ahead and teach you what they know. They just But now schools are opening up. There is Sri Aurobindo, there is T series, which is also doing their own course as such. But I never took any formal education because I just didn't know where to put my money in. In terms of music, all I learned was from my music society, and just read books online. Man, YouTube is the greatest teacher. There are just so many people who have learned things out of YouTube. Almost half the producers and sound engineers out there are learning things from YouTube. I mean, it's all available now. The internet is like this massive like thing that just gives you everything that you want. you'll have to search a little harder, read a little more, because it's not as structured as a curriculum. So because a curriculum, when you go inside, it's properly structured on how to teach a child or a student, like a person basically. But in this, you have to make your own curriculum. You have to understand and learn your own weaknesses and strengths and go ahead with it. So it was a long journey for me. I mean, I'd started doing music production in 12th, and it took me almost like, and I'm still learning, honestly, when I sit with some of the people that who are into all of this, and they teach me a lot of things. I mean, I did some internships here and there, and they taught me a lot of things that I just didn't know. I thought I knew, but like I just didn't have a clue. So I think it's important to, if not do formal, like definitely if not do formal education on it, it's very important for you to just go ahead and um, do internships in studios and all of that stuff, which is granted pretty easily. There are a lot of studios in this country who are trying to, make music and offer people making music and stuff like that with great knowledge, who will hire you because you just want to learn. It's not something that people are really looking a certificate for. It's something that you want to listen to. In the end, if it sounds great, it sounds great. It doesn't matter if you can read right after that, or like music in any way. If it sounds great, it sounds great. It's all about the ears.
Right, I think that's quite a handful to learn from. So there are two things which I put a pin on. One is that the internet is the biggest resource today. I think we should all leverage the power that is there in the internet. I think everything that there is to learn, you can learn on the internet. Probably music, as you said, and many other subjects are not as structured as they should be online for free, especially. But if you look hard, if you search hard, you'll probably find all the resources that you need, and you'll probably arrange them in the sequence you need. And then there is hidden trial, which you can again use the internet for. Now,
Absolutely.
So I got a question from the audience members, one of the audience members, who is a very regular audience member, who is Anita ji. So she asks, "What's the meaning of your name?" Which I'm also wondering about. I've heard this for the first time.
Yeah, it comes. My Dadaji kept this name, honestly, and
Hmm.
it comes from Bhargo Devasya, which is
Oh,
Bharg, which is another name for lordship. So it's actually, I think it's a Sanskrit word. I'm not sure. Is it Hindi? Do you say Bharg in Hindi, or do you say Bhargo Devasya in Sanskrit
Bhargo,
for sure?
Bhargo, we say
So should it
Sanskrit.
be, yeah, should it be Bhargo in Sanskrit and Bharg in Hindi? I'm not sure about that part, but it is another name for lordship.
Oh, that's an interesting name. So I think this is a good icebreaker also when you meet people, the first thing, because my name is Aditya, which is the most common name you'll ever hear. So yeah. So Mr. Sen also has a very interesting first name, which is Punnabrato. In Hindi you would say Punyabrata. So these are like, names which are good icebreakers. You can just start off a conversation with the meaning. That's great. So, Bharg, are you telling me that you learned everything about music from the internet? So let's say I as a person, I really like singing. I'm not a very good singer, but
Yeah,
let's say tomorrow I suddenly strike upon the fact that, okay, music production is my calling. And now I want to learn music because I cannot produce music like this without any knowledge of it. So I have to look for
absolutely.
resources online. So can I learn everything online?
Almost, yes. Yes, there is no doubt. And it's also your own will to experiment, It's like it's a software based thing now. Everything is on your laptop. It's literally my setup earlier was just my laptop and a pair of headphones. That's all I had. And not even like the laptop I have today. This was like a laptop that I bought in my like my mother bought in 8th grade when I was in 8th grade, and I took it in class 12th, and I used that only. And it was
Yeah,
a
would have been
bad
surprised if
laptop
your mother would
which
have bought in
had
her 8th grade.
yeah. No, that didn't happen, but she never used it, so I just snatched it away. So basically what happened was that what happens is that uh, you have to experiment. It's a software based thing, so it's not only the fact that you learn things. You can't learn every little detail of it, and you can't ask them every little detail, of course, because it's in the end YouTube. You can comment. The most you can do is message them, maybe somehow DM them in Instagram, or comment on their videos. So if that works and they respond to your like your question, that's great, or they make a video of your question, that's great. But in the end, you also have to experiment. So you have to, have that sort of like drive to go ahead and open up the software yourself. If you don't know anything, just go ahead. I think this is something my father said. If you don't know what a book means, and or like somebody is trying to tell you, just read it a couple of times, again and again, and a few words will start to make sense. Because every time you read like better, and that's the idea. You learn better, and that's the idea with softwares and music production too. You have to go ahead, open the app, be willing to just spend hours, not do stuff. It's not important for you to make music in one day. It's not going to happen. I mean, I thought I made brilliant music in class 12th also. I still think I make brilliant music. Sometimes it just turns out to be absolutely pathetic. It's absolutely opposite of what I mean. So I assure you, people can learn almost everything there is on YouTube now, especially now. In the past 1 or 2 years, people are actually making this a business where people have become music YouTubers and they're making money out of all of these things. So people are now starting to, put in more content because it is actually giving them revenue as well, and a lot more revenue. And now people and there are a few people who will also, there are people who will give you good knowledge, but they'll be hour-long videos. So it'll look boring, but it'll have a lot of information. Then nowadays, there's a thing called Twitch streaming. A lot of famous producers are doing streaming where they go ahead and they teach you what they know.
Oh.
So that happens, and it's literally happening. And at some point in time, of course, I am also thinking of doing the same thing, because we have to, in this country, so especially, you have to teach people music as much as you can as an open source, because not everybody has the money, and you don't want music production and all these things to be a very luxury ended thing. So I think that's the takeaway that like people should take from this.
That's a great insight. So firstly, we learned that, something that we also should reflect upon a lot, that the great power that the internet holds should not be only used to watch WhatsApp forward videos. Some of them can be useful, but most of them are not. I think the main power of the internet lies in the amazing educational videos that are there, which you can learn from a lot. And
Absolutely.
The same goes for music. And the second
even
thing which
online courses, sorry,
Yeah.
I'm so sorry, but even online courses, like there are so many people offering online courses now. There are so many like platforms that often like give courses out. My friend just recently learned like Adobe Photoshop and After Effects, just on like just putting a few bucks on the internet. I mean, rather than going to buy a Happy Meal, just put like those 500 rupees inside a course, and for a week, and you will learn something great.
Right. I think that's amazing. And the second, I think, insight which we drew from your conversation was that if you leverage the power of internet, then obviously, you have to apply things also. So it's not just the videos that are out there which you have to watch, because obviously, so there's this one thing which I have also learned through my experiences in education. I was a computer background, student. So basically, I was doing my computer engineering. The biggest mistake I did there is read up a lot on programming. I never really tried it out until late. So I read up a lot. That was my way to procrastinate. कि मैं पढ़ के पूरा पढ़ के फिर करूँगा. So that's never, a good way to study. A good way to study would be that whatever you read, and obviously there's a time limit. It's not like आप 10 minute में कुछ पढ़ के सीख जाओगे to apply. There's a time limit, of course, but when you strike that balance, maybe 2 घंटे कुछ पढ़ा उसको apply किया, something like that, which you feel is a strong concept enough for you to try and apply this thing, would be much better.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you. Like on that, there are so many like nowadays like these motivational things, and and even in music production, some of the like teachers tell you that the thing that you learn, go apply it rather than trying to learn 10 different new things. Learn that one thing, go ahead, apply that. Once you tried it in a few like things, come back and then become a master on the other thing. Like it's slowly. Yeah, so that's true, man. Like I 100% agree with that.
Great. So I think these are two very important insights that we drew from the conversation till now. Now, last thing, Bharg, I want to ask you is, before transferring to Mr. Sen. So, you've been a music producer, you are a songwriter, and you are a, what else? You're a music composer, right? So,
Yeah.
3 things, right? Now I want you to just break down for the benefit of the audience and for us, what does a music producer especially mean, and music composer, what's the work basically of these three people, and how are you doing it?
So basically, like, I think like I divide music also into like four parts. It's something that like I also do. I mean, I do all the four parts, but there are a few things that I do for fun, and there are a few things that like are my serious jobs. Sound engineering and music production are very serious for me, and of course singing songwriting is something that I'm still learning and developing, as well as of course sound engineering, but something that like I can hold now, and I can uh, get means out of, like ends out of, honestly. It's a means through which I can get ends out of, literally. But yeah, so all of these four things, let's composition is initial, right? It's when you suppose you have a guitar, right, and I sometimes want to construct a tune. Composition is the first initial step, that you decide on what to like go ahead and how to create that. Not think about creating the sound, but just thinking about the sound. So you sit down with your guitar, you play a few things, you play a few strings, you learn all of that, and you just get all of those things, you get your hands and you understand the chords, drive a melody. All right, you're good to go. All right, this is a basic structure that I have. Now you sit on like um, you sit on your computer, you open up an application that helps you make your music, and you sit down, and now you're looking, you start drafting out all of that structure, and you start penning it all down, and that's the product. Like, I think that's the production process. It's bringing out like everything that's in your head, and then start to penning it down finally, to like give it some like proper depth. So you give out like things like, I just sit down, I would want a bass over here, I would want all of those things, blah blah blah, different instruments and stuff like that. So even though they coincide, like it's like a Venn diagram that does coincide in a lot of areas, I think composition is the most initial part. Production is a little secondary after that. Then you have, of course, once you're, once you laid out the song is all ready. You're like, okay, this is how I want the song to be, this is what sounds I want to introduce in this part, this is exactly what I want to do. You structured out the song pretty well, you've decided all the sounds that you want, and all the different type of sounds that you want. Suppose you want like a crow sound in randomly coming out of the background, you want a yelling person in the background, you want something like, you want a sitar with like a guitar and playing together. All of that is like a part of the production and composition process. It's called a kind of coincide. Then comes the next step. The next step is, of course, sound engineering. I think that's like the final step of all. That is where you put down, like you bring that song and you glue it together, because producers, they produce the song. I mean, they get it out of like nothing to something, and when that something is done, you just have, the sound engineer just brings all of those pieces of puzzles and just puts it together and puts a glue on it. Or honestly, like if I had to put it in a puzzling way, composer just makes all the puzzles pieces, the producer puts it together, and the like engineer just glues it all up so that it never breaks. Like the song is strong, it's out there ready to go, the final packaging is done, there you go. So yeah.
I think that's great learning for all of us, because when we are discussing about careers in music, there is so much more to music than just singing, and this is one thing we have been focusing on a lot, because when we think about music, we think about Indian Idol, we think about Voice of India, limited to singing. So one question we asked a previous musician on the podcast also, which we might ask you again before transferring to Sen. So, Mr. Sen, do you remember that question which we had discussed upon, that why isn't there an Indian Idol for instrumentalists?
Yeah. Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember that. I think
Yeah.
that was with Shaurav.
Yeah, right. So, what do you think, Bharg? Why don't we have like an Indian Idol for, let's say music producers? Isn't that talent also required? Why do we only have it for singers?
You can have, I think you can have Indian idols for literally almost any skill that is available there. And I think you should, I don't know how to go about it, honestly. I never thought about it. This question is like very different, honestly, and thank you for asking that question, because I don't think a lot of people think about it that like that. Even my like curiosity and all my complaints about like the Indian music scene has not never helped me like ask this question that. But I don't think like it's just not there. I mean, the first step is, I think, education and curriculum. Singing is there in curriculum. I think things build up from there. I mean, personally, then it comes to famous reality shows. Uh, and of course, if people see money in it, why not? Let's be honest. Gully Boy came into place. Hip hop became a huge thing. People started like understanding, oh, there's a hip hop scene suddenly. I mean, there are people who've been struggling for the past 10 years, and suddenly Gully Boy comes and puts hip hop that out there. And after that, you have MTV Hustle. You have big actors doing, making videos using rap music. You have like everybody trying to get on with the rap lingos, with the hip hop beats and all of that stuff. And I think that is how it happened. MTV Hustle happened literally like that, because people they thought, all right, we can get like people up. So they got Raja Kumari, they got Raftar, and they got, of course, Nuclear, and they said, all right, let's just put them in the hip hop show and get the famous people, put them in. Let's get some rappers, and let's get it doing. Like, let's just get that done. So that happened. But I think like you can have an Indian Idol or something like that, for sure, for even music production. Absolutely, I think it'll be a little difficult, but because in the end it has to give you that entertaining value. And what a music producer will most probably just have a DJ set and will like just play his music and say how he composed it. That will be more like a Discovery Channel show than an ZTV type of a show, honestly. So I think that's something that like people will always have a difference upon. And I also think it's a lot to do with the education system. So the moment you put down like things like these in basic curriculum and stuff like that, and you offer like, because singing is there, I mean, there is an instrumental class, of course, but there's everybody loves the singing classes. Everybody enjoys all of that. Singing is taken very seriously, like you said, it is taken seriously. It is the biggest thing, because it's something that puts you in the limelight the most, right? And that's the fact about like life. In the end, singers always get the limelight, even if you're in a band. If you until you're like the greatest guitarist of all time or something like that, even then the lead guitarist gets the main go. Until you're a fanatic, until you're a music fan, you wouldn't really be interested in anybody except the singer or the lead guitarist, and that's the truth. So everybody's mostly interested in that. So everybody picks up a guitar. I picked up the guitar because of that. I'll be very honest, because it's like the thing that like Slash used to play. I loved him because he's the lead guitarist at one point in time. And I picked up singing because, like, honestly, I picked up singing because, yeah, I mean, I wanted to, like, be also try and see if I can actually be at the front of the stage. Can I do something? Because it's not as easy as it sounds like to, just stand in the front and, like, sing. But in any case, deviating, but coming back to that, you can have Indian Idol. I just don't think it's very feasible for these people to, or anybody to, at this point in time, make a channel, a show like that. Though it'll be interesting if they do. How?
It will definitely be very interesting. So, Samat, you want to say something?
हाँ मुझे एक ऐड करना था. I think I wasn't there for Gaurav's or Saurav's podcast, लेकिन I was actively watching that day. So I think I was commenting as well. The main factor that goes down to not having an instrumental Indian Idol is down to the business, the people who are investing into the shows. Plus also it comes down to the people's emotion. I mean, okay, let's take a comparison. I play tabla. Aditya said he sings okay for a random person that's walking down the street. So if we both were to have a small show, Gali ke kone mein, and there's a guy singing and there's a guy playing tabla solo, so which one would you attend? I think it goes down to that, because lyrics, like when you have lyrics and singing, you attach to that emotionally. Because like if you're singing, say, some song about the importance of mothers, and then I'm playing a random solo, although it might have some emotional gravitas behind that, but naturally everybody, the random person, average person, goes towards the lyrics. So I think it's like both are equally technical, but from a normal average, regular, everyday man's point of view, it goes for a business point of view.
That is very true. That is very true. Yeah, there's no doubt about that.
Yeah, back to Aditya.
Yeah, so as someone passed on the ball to me, I think I have asked enough questions and I would really like to pass it on to Mr. Sen, a superstar host.
Hi,
I,
could you just I'm so sorry. Could you just hold? I just there's some connection issue. I'll just fix that maybe. Wait. Just a second. So sorry.
yeah, so that's a very interesting topic actually. You know how we don't have an American Idol for other than for singing, and I think that's and also we don't have an American Indian Idol for. I don't think we have an American Idol for other than for singing either. So that's a very strange thing
So
to do.
all the TV shows are either based on singing. Then there was obviously there are a few shows based on bands, like something like the Battle of Bands or something. So there have been a few MTV shows based on like a band tournament, but that again is a whole performance, so that's okay. But at least everyone gets to participate there. Then, as Bharg talked about, there was a Hustle, MTV Hustle, which again was focusing on rapping. So it was not so much more about the musicians involved apart from the vocalist. That's also mostly focused on the vocalist, because I think Samanth's reason also I very much agree with, because when there is lyrics, you make sense of what is being said. Otherwise, the instruments are a bit hard to
Absolutely.
interpret. So, as Bharg said, it mostly becomes a Discovery Channel rather than a ZTV. Probably that's why.
Yeah, that's
Also,
very
I want to
interesting.
add just one more thing. The minor point that you brought up, I think it was the movies. Movies can actually, the example of Gully Boy, it brought up the hip hop scene in India. Now, if you take instrumentals and put them into a movie, it has to be technical. The instrumental music movies that I've seen so far, those have been like, okay, you need to get better and better. It's not just a performance. It's about the behind the scenes, how good you're getting the technique done. And it's not you think when you hear about music, obviously I'm nowhere close to where Bharg is or Saurav or any of the experts, but then we think it's subjective कि सुनने में अच्छा लग रहा है, so it's good. But when you actually look at it from an educated point of view, it's actually objective. It's not subjective at all. It's actually objective. And to make a movie about where you're not actually using words and you have to convey emotions through a beat, a few beats, multiple beats, based on a piece of paper where you written down in a musical language. Even I don't understand the single tone in that. So it's difficult to even make a movie upon that. And the movies that have been made are extremely difficult, and they've gone up to way the in a way that you need to have a decent level of intellectual understanding to even get that movie or comprehend the movie in a way that the director wants you to.
Absolutely, absolutely. There's this movie called Whiplash, right? I think like it's a classic out there. So a lot of people often when they watch that movie, even a few things that when I was young, when I watched that movie, I didn't understand a lot of things personally, because you need to have some sort of like a little insight to watch that movie in the first place, or those are very intense movies in any case. So you're right about that. There is a lot of objectivity.
I think Mr. Sen and Aditya are fed up of hearing me talking about Whiplash because I've talked about it way too many times on the podcast over the day. So I'll just hand it over to Mr. Sen. Yep.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you. Namaskar, welcome. So now, Bharg, you started this whole evening by saying that you're into retro music, and that's very interesting. So, you know, retro music is something that for us, when we were growing up, was not retro. It was like current. It was like
Absolutely.
the scene in the scene at that moment.
Yes,
It's
absolutely.
retro for you guys, but you know, there is a lot of uh, there was a lot of background to the music that was made in the 60s, 70s, and in the 80s. In the 60s, it was more of activism. So you had a lot of activism that was going on. It gave the world people like Joe Baez and Bob Dylan, and it gave the people in the world like the Woodstock in 1969. So that was an event that's still not been sort of replicated anywhere. 1971, 70s, we had the Vietnam War, we had Bangladesh being born as a country. And that time you had the Beatles coming into their own. They came in a bit later. And they started in the 60s, they came into the 70s. You had people like the Beatles, you had the people like the Rolling Stones, You also had people like Fleetwood Mac, Deep Purple. And then in the 80s, you came and you had Guns N' Roses. And so Guns N' Roses made it very famous with their number one hit, Sweet Child O' Mine, if I remember correctly. That's in 1987. So now, what got you interested in this retro music? And from the posters in your bag, I see it's all to do with the Western music. So that's where I went.
Absolutely, yes. I mean, the Western posters are mostly because we have a Western music society. Honestly, that's the only
Okay,
reason we put
that's
up
fair.
Western music. I think it's as like people should be interested in the Indian classicals part of music and the Indian history of music.
Well, I'm going to come to that. I'm going to come to that after you answer this.
But yeah, what got me interested into old English songs? My parents, I think, they my father really enjoyed a lot of like Guns N' Roses and Bob Dylan, and he said, "Well, if you're becoming a musician and a guitarist, you should listen to all of these people." So I said, "Okay, I'll listen to what they have to offer." As a child, because some of the things that they said wasn't like so comprehensible to me. I mean, what can I expect like a seventh grader of like to understand about the music sometimes that they're talking about? What you do here is a lot of flashy stuff. So I was a lot into like hard rock and metal, and because that was all on your face. It was all about the flash and the thing. Later in class 9th and 10th, I think at that emotional stage of puberty as such, like at its prime, it's when I got introduced to like I started understanding Bob Dylan and Pink Floyd and Deep Purple, the Beatles, a lot more than what they're supposed to be. I had still no knack for jazz and classical English music at that point in time. I think that developed way back in like way later in college as such, that I got introduced to like all of these jazz folks, and they just pinned me down. It is more like eating a sushi. It's like developed taste in the end. I think that's what it was for me, classical and jazz music. But back to the question again. I think that's literally what got me interested, because they had something to offer, something different, and some of the things that they said which cannot be said now, you just can't take them. Some of the things that they said were like timeless. I mean, when you hear like Stairway to Heaven, you know it's timeless because there's a thing. When you hear the Sweet Child O' Mine ka hook being played in the first few seconds, you know it's timeless. It's never going to be played. Or even the messages, and not even like a big political or activist message, but like for me it was more personal. Music has always been a little more personal than like a very like out there sort of like a thing. I connect with music more, which is more personal to like a person himself or herself. So, for example, things like "Tears in Heaven" were a game changer for like when I heard that song from Eric Clapton, I lost it. I had never heard anybody put words the way he did. So I never thought somebody could write about like his own like uh, son in such a way and in such a beautiful way. And I think that got me more into like such music, because there were some things which were spoken will not be which cannot be replicated today. I don't think you can. The tone, the style, the voice, I don't think people are. I think it's a different time. I'm not complaining that people don't want to listen to that stuff. I think it's their it's our choice. I mean, it's whatever they want to listen to, and for sure. But what they did was something that you just now we whether or not they're interested, or whether or not today's musicians are interested or not, people are not going to replicate all this. You can now. I mean, the way the ideas they had were ah I mean, yeah, like great.
Yeah, I mean, what you say is absolutely right. I think Bob Dylan finally landed up with a Nobel Prize. So there you go.
Yeah.
And yeah, you're right, actually. And if you look at I'll stay with that trend for a moment, which is if you look at a song, say like Imagine by John Lennon, written sometime in 73, 74, if I'm not so wrong. And today we are how many years on? 50 years on, almost?
Yeah.
Right? That song is as relevant today as it was then.
Absolutely.
And so that's something to think about. Now, from there, I'm going to jump. And you had Eric Clapton. I forgot to mention him. I forgot to mention Jimi Hendrix, perhaps the
Hendrix.
greatest lead
Absolutely.
guitarist ever.
I think I have Hendrix too. Yeah.
Yeah, you have Hendrix. I mean, you have to have Hendrix. If you're going to play the guitar, you need to have Hendrix around somewhere. Otherwise, it's not complete. And
Absolutely. That's true.
and one cannot forget Carlos Santana.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And we had a saying that if you're driving a car, you cannot play Carlos Santana.
Oh, wow. I am not aware of that saying at all. But
because you'll tend to overspeed. But now let's talk about one Indian composer, which I believe, and I think many people believe, wrote music for the future. Though he heavily drew on international and global world music, including a lot of rock, including a lot of music from the Mediterranean areas. The guy I'm talking about is Artie Berman. What have you to say about him?
So, there are a lot of musicians and singers that you know, but there are very few composers that you know in Indian scene, and that's true. Artie Berman was one of the few that you will know, and I think so. And I'll be very honest, I wasn't into Artie Berman at least till like 2 years back. But thank God my father forced me into it.
Okay.
I mean, sometimes when your parents force you into things, it's not always bad. So I think it was one of those things that my father literally forced me. He said, "वो बेवकूफ नहीं था, सुनो उसको." So I said, okay, calm down. I went ahead, and that entire night I just heard him. And see, some of the rhythms that he's had, and I think his rhythmic components were something that people just can't take away. His melodic understandings were something that you just can't take away. And I think that's more complex than what I am talking. Like, I think it's more not in general, but something that people don't understand. People often think of like Indian compositions to be very general because हम रोज सुनते हैं तो मतलब ठीक है, and you think like, oh, these like pop hits in the abroad are pretty big, but no, these are like technically very sound and study worthy, but has a lot of study like worthy material in his like resume, if you must say, or like for the lack of a better word, but I understood a lot more rhythms because of him. I just the way he would just randomly bring a funk guitar, the way he would just like, you know, just change the tempo of a song. He could make slow songs turn into something very fast. He could just flip songs left and right, and that was amazing. I mean, something that happens now all the time. People love tempo shifts because I don't think people have the capacity to go on more than 20 seconds in any case nowadays. Like, as TikTok is like, because it's becoming huge, we can't listen to anything more than like a minute. People change songs. It happens with me too, and something like shouldn't happen. But they would make like full 7 minute long music, and those were pieces. They were proper music pieces. He would have an intro, he would have a verse, he would have a breakdown, he would have a proper jugalbandi section. Everything was laid out for him. And I mean, I don't know how he did it, and I think that way you guys were lucky because the radio and everything was so limited that you only got to hear the best of the best. We can hear everything that is there, from the trash to the best. I mean, it's become so like so up to your own choice that you have to develop it, I think, after a point in time. But with you guys, you just had to be like, this is what you have, and you had some really good people to like listen to. So I mean, Artie Berman Saab, so is something that even I'm like, stealing from, honestly. Some of my compositions, in my like things that I'm trying to work with, I'm stealing a little from him right now. I'll be very honest. Like I'm trying to get a little bit of tunes and stuff copied and down from like him. So yeah.
That's absolutely great. I mean, yeah, that's what it's all about. And Artie Berman actually created sounds in a movie which is, I think, the landmark watershed movie in India. And I'm talking about Sholay. In Sholay, he used a range of sound engineering, which is perhaps unparalleled even today.
Absolutely.
And you have those, I mean, that whole movie had, other than the acting and whatever else that was there, but I think the sound engineering made Sholay what it was and what it is today.
Absolutely. I think people mistake like a lot of things in terms of like music, putting like things into. Uh, I really think there wouldn't be things without like music in terms of like anything. Anything that you do has to have sound. Otherwise, it will be super empty for you. And movies, they are empty if there is no music. There are
Yeah.
hardly like silent movies that people can go on and watch about. So, and Artie Berman, though, I mean, who are we even talking about? I mean, that's the like I can't I don't have like a lot to say on him because it needs like a I think it's like a entire it's a course, it's a proper like study curriculum, like you have to, it's a subject.
You can do a doctorate, actually. Yeah, okay. Let's put it that way.
Yes, you can
You can do a doctorate.
Use some really weird stuff. Use some really weird stuff you would hear with sounds. Like often in a song, there's a thing called phaser, which is supposed to phase sound like. And what it does is, even if you go ahead and like you put your mouth on top of your speaker and you go like you make like open your mouth and close it, there's a funny sound that comes in. That's called like the phasing and chorusing effect. And he often would just randomly put it somewhere, and not something that you would often see in a lot of like Indian music at that point. He did that. He wasn't like afraid to like, he wasn't afraid to like, go ahead and just be like, kar dete hain, kya farak padta hai, dekh le.
Yeah, he was the master explorer. He would explore into everything. Absolutely. Now, he is. He's more than a legend, if you ask me. That's the way it is. And in fact, all the musicians we talked about, they're more than legends.
They all are.
They're
timeless. They'll never die.
Yeah. So now at this point, I mean, we had a very engrossing talk. Thank you, Bharg. Now I must hand over to Samant because we are getting to that Cinderella time, as we call it. So, Samant.
Absolutely.
Mr. Sen, we ourselves had so many questions that three of us took up the 1 hour that we had. But I will take one question from the audience. Let's see. Should I do an inky pinky ponky? I don't know how to choose. Let's see, थोड़ा music से दूर जाते हैं अभी के लिए. For now, let's take it slightly थोड़ा ज़्यादा music centric हो गया है. I mean, that was a point of the podcast. But since this is a question, Anita ji ने पूछा है, what's your learning about humanity from philosophy?
A lot. I mean, from like sitting on the table to like doing everything that I had to do was like explained to me in philosophy. So when we Hello?
Yeah, we can hear you now.
Yeah, sorted. I think Anita ji, almost everything that you have to do is entrenched in like very very fundamental, and something that you think like this just happens daily in our life, so it's nothing that you pay attention to. But at one point in time, I think those were like very well thought of theories. I mean, things go beyond, I think, in modern day philosophers, it goes beyond like the realms of Marx and all of that. And if you just go way behind them also, I think you go to the initial like just the initial Greek philosophers or the Indian philosophers as such, you will see so many fundamental habitual things that were there, that they were talking about and debating about, something that you don't question right now. But of course, because science and technology has come to a point where like it's just literally answerable in the most simplest terms, but those simple things were not explained to you in very like, you know, um, easy manner at that point in time. So they had very complex theories, and to understand what reasoning they would have, because if I argue with you on things like why do you like eat food at one point in time, or why do you need food, and like what is assimilation and dissimilation, and like why are you like existing, or all of that kind of stuff, while you can explain a lot of things now in scientific as well as philosophic terms, if you go to like zero and ask that question again, it's a whole different ballgame altogether. So to understand, I think those fundamentals to everything right now has been a lot of help. Ethics, especially ethics and morality, is still as underdeveloped as it was at that point in time. We think like morality and ethics have come a long way, but it's just re-evolving, and like keeps changing itself. So I think that way philosophy has been amazing teacher for me. And in terms of like, I think even doing music, like I try and put like a lot of like, I try and make my music, and whenever like I talk to other artists and we discuss ideas, a lot of like ideas, because of course every musician wants to hear personal stuff, and but after your personal life is over and you've explained everything, and often and sometimes people, a lot of people who are doing music don't have like a lot of like, personal things to talk about. And if they don't, then what do? You can't just talk about bragging about your own life, which happens in music all the time. I mean, nowadays, like, or you can't just have like a city pop song. So if you want to make something meaningful, I think you need to go back to like very existential ideas. So whenever people I want to ask like are composing things, and if I help them, I often give them like very crazy ideas. Like this one time I like gave an idea of like an Upanishad called Kathopanishad to a musician, and it's a dialogue between him and Yamraj, and about different aspects of life and how he answers questions. And we made like an entire a song in dialogues about all of that. So it literally helps in like creating ideas for me. It helps me like just generate. I think that's the most important thing. It just helps me generate a lot of ideas now.
Right, great. I was actually going to end on that. Lekin, since I have the control, I'll stretch it out and I'll bend the rules for myself. I do have a question. One final question. So I want to like music and emotion are extremely closely intertwined. There's no second thought about that. And the biggest, I guess, I won't say battle, but then the biggest difference in music would be lyrical versus instrumental, basically. And my personal favorite type of music would be the instrumental, of course. And the instrument being sarod, it's an Indian string instrument.
Nice.
So, but where the thing I compare this to is movies or comedy specifically, where you have comedy through dialogue and you have physical comedy. Now, comedy through verbal jokes, you have a whole plethora and a whole bunch of comedians. But then if you think of physical comedy, you have maybe Charlie Chaplin, the greatest of all time, of course, and then you have Rowan Atkinson, who played Mr. Bean, and then you have Jim Carrey, and then maybe you can pick one or two that maybe you know or you don't know. But then that's what I compare to is what's your take on this? The difference between lyrical and instrumental.
I think there's a huge difference now. I mean, it's not a difference that you want to have. It's a difference that like is there. So, uh, as an instrumentalist primarily, and then being a singer, I think the idea is to, and I think that's happening. So not a very popular trend like in the Indian music scene, but electronic dance music. Uh, all over the world has changed the game for a lot of like people. There are electronic dance music only consists of composers, right? Those are basically it's basically a genre where it's about the composer first and then about the singer or the lyrics, and that's how they have started to communicate emotions. Like, they were making music. When they are making music, they're making music only on the basis of like just instruments. That's all they have. When it comes to techno, when it comes to even like lo-fi, when it comes to all of these sort of like different genres, trap, blah blah blah. So I think electronic dance music has really opened up like a gateway for a lot of composers as such, and it was a very eye-opening thing for me also, because um, that introduced me to composition and to the production and sound engineering. So I think that's a great way for people to go ahead, and I think the change is coming. People are looking into instrumentals, and people have started listening to a lot of instruments. I've seen a lot of people in general, preferring certain, and that is why now you have playlists like mood music. Like you have music based on moods nowadays, where it's not about the singer anymore. It's about like what the instrumental makes you feel, and those are growing popular day by day. You know, it's I'll be honest. Uh, it's now very production and sound engineering based as compared to what it was, and today it is like that. Often people are like, इसमें कुछ बोल है या नहीं इस गाने में, but and पहले होता था, and I think that's something that I think, because at that point in time, and especially I mean even in abroad and over here, we just didn't expand upon, and I think we should have expanded upon the Indian classical side more as such. We still can, and we should, because it has a lot to do with just the tunes, the melodies. Rags are not lyrics, but they are a way of music. So in the idea is to, they are the melodies and all of that stuff. So voice is also an instrument. It's purely an instrument. As a sound engineer, that's what we're told, that you have another instrument, just mix it into the song. That's all it is. So we have to treat voices as an instrument rather than it's like this special privilege that we give. I think that's something that you have to understand. But and this is what I want to end it with. Like, this question is that today music is very instrumental based and is heavily relying upon all of that. Lyrics are becoming lesser and lesser. Instrumentals are gaining more and more power, and that is happening. And in a few years, you will see it will become a proper blend where you will know a lot more composers. And the Indian music scene is growing as well, thanks to the internet. And because India is being seen as a very big potential music market now, slowly, with like a lot of people like labels and stuff trying to come in. So that is happening. So India has a lot to grow now, and hopefully we will have like a separate, because Bollywood has its 5 fingers, if you may take, and they're one of the most important, like thumb is, music is like a thumb for them. But the moment like music becomes another hand in itself, which can function on its own, which happens in all other countries as such, is when, and that will happen very soon. It will happen very soon. It's then when you will have like a bifurcation between instrumentalists and a singer come together. That bifurcation will slowly die out.
Great, fantastic. But finally, can we have a performance from you? Either singing or
Sure.
instrumental, whichever is comfortable for you.
Absolutely.
In the meantime, I want to ask you guys, by the time Bharg sets up, Mr. Sen, Aditya, and Pragya as well, what's your favorite instrument, either to play or to listen to? Okay, firstly, anyone wants to, Aditya?
Okay, I'll go first. For me, it's obviously the guitar. I tried to learn it once also. So my elder brother knows how to play the guitar on a very basic level, like the acoustic guitar, and I would. So I tried to learn it the wrong way. That's why I could not learn further. So he used to learn it like notes. Whatever G minor and all that. And I used to see him, does he put the fingers? And I tried to exactly memorize where he puts the fingers, and then I used to put my finger there and try. Learned a few tunes, very few, and very basic ones, but then I forgot all the chords very soon because I hadn't learned it the right way. But yeah, I do want to learn guitar sometime. Probably I'll make my own YouTube channel and just put videos out there. If anybody watches, great. If nobody watches, it's my personal diary. So uh, that's something in my bucket list still.
You'll never know if like you have great music until you put it out there. Just like saying, just put your stuff out
True.
there. That's like very important for like every.
Mr. Sen, your favorite instrument to listen or play?
That's a very difficult one because there's, I don't know, hundreds and thousands of instruments. And for me to pick any one of them is not, it's going to be a disservice to the others. And I don't know enough of them to even, like go down that road. So I'll pass.
Okay, Pragya, you want to share with us what's your favorite instrument? Okay, no problem. Was that, sorry? Okay, great. Over to you, Bharg. Now you can, so guys, if you can mute yourself, we'll let Bharg just take over the stage.
Yes. I think this was one of my first ever compositions that like I wrote for. I sung honestly. It's the first song that I ever performed also in front of people. I mean, I was just started performing as a singer very recently. It's called Not the Guy. It's an average. It's your average town like song for like every guy who just thinks like, and it's a little. Yeah, so basically the song talks about like it's like an underdog understanding of like your own self, and it's where you think of yourself. It's self-deprecating a little, so that way, but it's put down in like very happy tune. So it's like a relatively sad song that talks like about why like the girl that you like doesn't like you back, and there's like this difference that it's like that she's way out of your league type of an understanding. I think I personally understood that because of and this is something that like honestly like it's absolutely true when I say this. It's because of my 8th class rejection that I had. I was rejected in class 8th, and I was like, मेरे में ऐसा क्या बुरा है? So that came into play, and that's why I wrote this song. In any case, alright, so here it goes. You're the prettiest girl I've ever seen. I'm the prettiest guy you'll ever meet. Oh no, who the hell am I? I ain't strong enough to lift you up at the shows that you mostly love. Oh no, who the hell am I? I can tell by the stories you have that I don't stand a chance. Oh no, oh please. I can tell by the way that you act that I don't get this chance. So no, oh please. But girl, I'm just too blind to accept this, that I'm not the guy. You like the guys with the chisel jaw, and I'm just someone who's round and short. Oh no, who the hell am I? I can't buy you things to gift you, hun, but I can write you songs and sing you some from my heart. But who the hell am I? 1, 2, 3, 4. Now I can tell by the stories you have that I don't stand a chance. So no, oh please. I can tell by the way that you act that I'll never get this chance. So no, oh please. But girl, I'm just too blind to accept this, that I'm not the guy. So yeah, I think that's the first song I ever wrote in my life. So I'm a little rusty on that. But thank you.
Amazing.
Great, fantastic. Thank you so much, Bharg. So firstly,
All right,
the
thank
audience.
you for inviting, man.
Yeah, firstly, the audience, thank you so much for your questions, comments, and insights. Mr. Sen, Aditya, and Pragya, thank you for joining. And of course, most importantly, Bharg, thank you so much for taking the time to talk with us. I think we discussed the things that we haven't covered in the podcast with other musicians. So that was something new. So I hope everybody got to learn a lot. So thank you so much, Bharg, for coming into our podcast.
Thank you so much, like the three of you. I mean, this was I think it was a much needed like engagement, and I think like it's great for like you guys to like take this up, because I think musicians and different sort of careers need to be like taken it a little more seriously and be understood a little more better. So thank you. And like if any of you like ever want to like get into music, just or any of the viewers who are watching, if you ever want to get into music and you have like any problems in like going ahead with it, always like message me. I'm always available. My Instagram is always available. Everything is always available. So whenever you want to like hit me up, just do that. It's always fun.
So guys, if you want to get in touch with Bharg, his Instagram handle is mentioned on ProBano's latest Instagram post, so you can check that out and you can get in touch with him. Definitely. With that being said, stay home, stay safe, wash your hands. बाहर जा सकते हो, लेकिन try to keep it to a minimum for emergencies. And like and follow our Facebook page and turn on post notifications to get notified when we do go live. Subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch our live streams on entrepreneurship. And we'll see you tomorrow at same time at 6 p.m. with another guest. See you now. Take care. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.